Whenever the fall anime season started, there was one anime that I was more excited for than anything else. And as you could clearly tell, that anime was Dandadan. Aside from having an opening that I unironically listen to every time there's a new episode, Dandadan also brings one of the most interesting and entertaining plots in modern shonen. That and a sprinkle of freaky, but you'll see what I mean by that in due time.
Whoa.
Momo Ayase, one of the two main characters of this series, gets introduced while simultaneously getting ray-riced and dumped by her now ex-boyfriend. And when consoling in her friends after the fact, we find out that the only reason she was with this dude was because he looked like her celebrity crush Ken Takakura. And honestly, I can't even hate because I would definitely consider getting the same treatment as long as the girl looked like Chloe Bailey.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
We then run into our second protagonist, Okarun, who seems to be your typical high school nerd going through some hazing. And before the hazing could turn into an assault charge, best girl Momo happens to step in and prevent that from happening. This would spark a conversation between the two where Okarun believes that she has a similar fascination with aliens like he does. However, instead of believing in aliens, she believes in ghosts. And because of this, it would cause an argument about whether or not which one was real and a dare between the two of them where they would both go to areas where these supernatural phenomena happen and the loser would have to be the other's gopher. Whatever that means, I honestly don't know. Momo would be sent to an abandoned hospital and Okarun would be sent to a haunted tunnel with nothing but a flip phone and a flashlight. And while talking about the reasoning behind Momo believing in ghosts, Okarun just happens to run into the ghost of Grandma Diddy and does what any logical person would do and runs away without a second thought. Unluckily for Okarun, this granny was known as Turbo Granny, so he really stood no chance. And while Momo was listening to this happen over the phone, she just happens to run into some Diddy goblins and gets abducted by aliens.
Man, goddamn.
These aliens just happen to be a male-only race looking to reproduce, and remember when I said this anime gets a little freaky? Yeah, this is one of those moments.
Wait a damn minute. Wait a damn minute.
Fortunately, before this moment could get any worse than it was already looking, the curse of Grandma Diddy fused with Okarun happens to come just in the nick of time and bites off a couple alien stick shifts. Huh? It's here that we find out that Okarun's only dream was to see an alien because he thought they would be friends with him. However, since Momo stuck up for him, he wouldn't let this Diddy goblin lay another finger on her. But in a very hilarious turn of events, he gets smacked and realizes he's at his limit. A for effort though, Okarun. Luckily in this moment, Momo has a flashback to a conversation with her grandma about her chi, and while her brain was getting stimulated by this alien, she awakens to her psychic powers and immediately kicks this alien in the next week. The problems would only continue though, because although Momo was able to separate Okarun and Turbo Granny, he was still cursed until he was able to get his shaft back. And on top of this, the UFO they were in was crashing as well. I mean, that could have made it worse, but somehow Momo just kicks the door out as it lands on the ground and they get out fairly easily.
That don't make no sense.
Following this, we see that Momo is the only way for the curse to be contained, and she and Okarun make an agreement to release him from the curse as a team. But when asking what his actual name was, it just happens to be Ken Takakura. What a coincidence. And due to Momo being unsettled with this revelation, she decides that he's now known as Okarun, but that's nothing new because I've been calling him that this whole video. Anyway, after that was solved, they would go back to Momo's crib in anticipation of her grandma being there so they could figure out this whole curse situation. And as soon as they arrive, Okarun continues down his path of misfortune by getting set on fire due to a special tag that was on the front gate of the house. Although you could say it blessed him with this fire ass cut. And no, I'm not just saying that because it's very similar to my haircut.
Yeah.
Once they go inside, Momo sees that her grandma isn't there at the moment, but that wasn't gonna stop her from putting on some new drip. This is also where we get to see Okarun find out that his pisser has actually gone MIA. And to be honest with you, if that was me, I would have just let the curse take me right there, cause ain't no way. But somehow this leads to another sentimental moment where Okarun talks about his lack of friends and why he hasn't been able to make any, but Momo quickly shuts that down as they quite literally went through the craziest 12 hours of dad lore ever. And just as they get back to their usual selves, the doorbell rings, but when Momo is heading down the stairs, she sees that tag that she took off as she realizes that whoever is at the front door is probably an evil spirit. So the plan now was to try to put the tag back on while also getting Okarun off the property beforehand so he doesn't get sent up in flames again. When they get outside, they quickly see that they're trapped in and their noses begin to start bleeding due to some poisonous smoke. All of a sudden, a shack-sized alien comes out of nowhere and immediately starts swinging, causing Okarun and Momo to just book it at all costs. But because of the black fog this alien was putting in the air, Momo wasn't able to use her powers very well, and just as they're about to get sumo stomped into the ground, Okarun tells Momo to lock in and let the curse take over his body while leaving his mind clear. And when she does this, we would then see one of the coldest transformations in modern anime. Okay, I know that's 100% opinionated, but come on man, look how sick he looks. Now although this transformation is really cool, like any other anime transformation, there are a few drawbacks drawbacks. One being that Okarun turns into Shikamaru in Naruto, and the other reason being due to his body not being strong enough to move as fast as he does. At least he was able to bite off 5 fingers before running out of gas. Momo would then notice that this alien was taking a sumo-like stance, so she figures that if they're able to get it to touch the ground with his hand, then maybe that'll do something. So Okarun transforms one last time and takes out one of its legs, while Momo is able to make it touch the floor using her psychic powers. However, this alien decides to grow a set of legs from the front and toss Momo into the wall like a wet noodle. And just when it seems like all hope is lost while Momo continues to get plastered into the wall, we see that the beating she took made a crater just big enough to replace the tag and eliminate this alien for good. But since it seems like 2 good things can't happen in a row in this anime, right after this, Momo passes out, leaving an untamed Okarun at the front gate of the ISA residence. Luckily, just in the nick of time, the baddest grandmother I've ever seen in fiction pulls up and begins to run the ones with Turbo Granny using some anti-sea bear circles. And if you get that reference, you're a real one. Anyway, Granny Psycho was able to pretty easily handle this predicament, and before we see what happened to Okarun, Momo awakens from her slumber as we see the moment where I assume a lot of people became Dandadan fans.
Yeah, boy.
On a real note though, it's here where we see Momo apologize to her grandma for ever doubting her, and Okarun was okay this whole time, eating a rice ball in the shed. We'd then be brought up to speed on some Turbo Granny lore, on top of some information on how to defeat Turbo Granny, making her play tag, using barriers to make her curse weaker outside its designated area. And since this designated area was right outside the range of where Granny Psycho can use her powers, she wasn't going to be able to help out during this mission to get Okarun's ding dong back. So this only means that it's time for a training arc. Before we get to that though, Okarun has to poop, and while he's sitting on the porcelain throne, Turbo Granny pops out and decides that a training arc would take way too much time and that Momo and Okarun have to go to the tunnel tonight or she'll curse even more people. So in order to keep that from happening, they would head out that night dressed in some funny looking protective clothes from curses. Then again, Momo instantly changes into some real drip, leaving Okarun as the only lame-o on the train.
I mean, you're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it.
Whenever they arrive, Momo is confident that they'll be able to defeat her because of their encounter with that alien back at her crib. But in an ironic turn of events, they come across a ginormous head, trapping them from both sides, and unlike Granny Psycho, those bats don't do a damn thing to help. The next plan was to have Okarun transform, but when he tries, Turbo Granny gives back his baby maker, and because of this, it seems like all hope is lost. But remember, the whole point of coming here was to play tag with Turbo Granny to lure her out. So Momo starts talking like Kendrick Lamar did to Drake, and Turbo Granny accepts the challenge to play a game of tag. Now the rules were supposed to be that Momo and Okarun had a 10-minute head start before they would begin. However, Turbo Granny starts counting like that one kid your mom would force you to play with, and catches Momo in some sort of funky cocoon. This would lead to a powerless Okarun to fend for himself, but instead of going down without a fight, he decides to latch onto Turbo Granny like a newborn baby, and because of this ridiculous outfit that he wore, Turbo Granny couldn't get his chompers off her, so she decides to take over his body again. But due to Momo deciding to use her 10-minute training arc to her advantage, she was able to contain the curse again and break out of that cocoon. And just when he thought things couldn't get any crazier, a giant crab spirit decides to show up, causing Momo and Okarun to do what they've basically been doing this entire anime, and that is running for their lives.
Run, bitch! Run!
And since Okarun was in possession of Turbo Granny again, he's able to transform, but unfortunately immediately jumps off a cliff. Luckily, he was able to break the fall by going all out, but that wouldn't stop the crab from being right on their tail. However, Momo thinks quickly and takes the crab to a hot spring to boil it, and would you look at that? It worked. But remember earlier in the video when I said that 2 good things can't happen in a row in this anime? Yeah, they're introduced to a mob of spirits on top of a crab that was just chasing them. Then again, this anime is very unpredictable as Momo tells Okarun to go all out again, and I shit you not, a Beethoven remix begins to start playing, and they use a slingshot technique to get further away towards the barrier.
Shake and bake.
But because during all this Momo let go of Turbo Granny, she decides to take over the crab, and in another moment where he thought things are over, Momo's light in her head decides to go off and grabs the train to escape the crab granny. This would lead to Granny Psycho making it clear that they were heading towards the barrier, and boom, Turbo Granny defeated. Although this does bring up a pretty sad topic about the location of where Turbo Granny was staying, but believe me, this won't be the first time you'll be seeing something sad in this anime. Anyway, they, for some odd reason, decide to celebrate eating some crab, and Okarun declines due to the whole damn near being killed by a crab earlier. Smart man. It's then where the whereabouts of Okarun's ding dong was discussed as we hear from the man himself that he got it back. Granny Psycho, however, wanted a peep to make sure.
It should have been me, not him.
And to wrap things up, the beginning of what seems to be a little bit of romantic chemistry happens between Momo and Okarun as they tell each other they'll see each other later. Now this might be because I'm currently caught up in the manga, but I can't wait to see what happens next. And if this video does somewhat well, I'll definitely make another one later on in the season. But that's all I got for this one, so until next time, peace.